So in our last one, we're going to talk about checking and fixing your documents. And in a lot of ways, this is one of the most important presentations. So for your friends who might have been sitting next to you who left earlier because they had other commitments, I would encourage you to have them watch this online because it will be online. So talk about finding information and help again. Again, my name is Deborah Charlesworth. I'm the Assistant Dean of the Graduate School, and I run the dissertation and thesis review process. We'll talk a little bit about finding information and how to get help. We'll talk about Adobe Acrobat, what it is, what it does a little bit, and really talk about sort of the main two things that happen with documents. One of our biggest issues or one of our biggest mistakes that we see in documents are embedding fonts. And everyone thinks it's very complicated, and I'll show you that it's really not complicated. It's very easy, and it will help your document be accessible to a worldwide audience. And the other major problem that we have with documents is checking their margins. The number one reason that we reject documents, the number one reason we ask you to revise documents is to check your margins. And there's stuff in the margins. And that's something that's very easy for you to check. It will take you a little bit of time, but a little bit of time up front could save you a lot of time up in the back end, as well as making sure you complete your degree. There's also a lot of tools in Adobe Acrobat that you can use to edit your documents, and I'll show you how you can use Adobe Acrobat to make some really quick changes so that maybe the document that wouldn't have been acceptable to the grad school with just a couple of clicks would be. And so that will help you, again, complete your degree. And then I'll also show you about the redaction tools. In our last presentation on copyright, we talked about how sometimes permission letters have signatures on them. We want to make sure those are hidden in our documents, and I'll show you how to use the redaction toolbar. So if you do need assistance at any time with your degree, the graduate school is here to help you. We want to make sure that you complete your degree successfully, and we want to make sure that you do that with as little fuss as possible. And so we would encourage you to email gradschool@m2.edu. That email is monitored by multiple staff in our office, and so it'll get you an answer the quickest way, and it'll make sure that somebody sees it right away. The important things on the web really for students that are completing a degree are in that policies and procedures area, as well as in that resources for button. The resources for area, there's several different versions of that, but the one that we're interested in as a current student, that one will show you a bunch of academic, professional, and graduate resources. The professional ones in particular, the one that I've outlined in red is the graduate school seminars. That's where you'll find this recording, as well as other recordings and all of our slides, as well as links to other helpful resources. So all the presentations that we've given today regarding theses and dissertations have a lot of supporting material to do with formatting in the blog, and we've kind of collated all those links there for you, so that's a good resource for you. Some helpful resources for you when you're preparing your documents. The guide, which is on our webpage, describes all the formatting requirements and has helpful links and a lot of copyright information. We would also strongly encourage all of our students to use a template, either the Word or the LaTeX template. This will help you easily format your document, and we can show through our data that students who use a template are more likely to be accepted the first time than students who don't. It doesn't matter whether you use a Word or a LaTeX template, so LaTeX people don't have a different rate of acceptance than Word people, but all the template people are better off in the long run than the non-template users. The theses and dissertations area on our website has information about copyright and links to a lot more tools and formatting, and we encourage you to take a look at those resources. It's easier to look at them now when you're not so stressed, and maybe not trying to finish than trying to find it at the last minute. So if you kind of take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with what we have available, when you need it later, you'll be able to find it a lot more easily. So today we're going to talk about kind of how to do things in Word and Acrobat. And the Acrobat piece is applicable really to anybody who's making a PDF. And a PDF is what you need to submit to the graduate school at all stages. I'll usually talk just about one way of doing things. Sometimes there's more than one, but I'm just going to talk about one way. So if you have your own favorite way of doing something, that's awesome. I'm going to show you my favorite way of doing it today, and that's equally awesome. So whatever favorite way you like to do it is fine. So Adobe Acrobat. I find it sometimes easy because we kind of think about Adobe Acrobat as being like the PDF thing, and it kind of is. But it's sort of like Kleenex. You know, it's the brand name for a facial tissue. I mean, you could talk about other facial tissues. You know, puffs are just as good as Kleenex sometimes, but we just kind of use some of these generic terms so frequently that they become associated with the item. So PDF actually means portable document format, and it was created by Adobe in 1993, but it is now an open standard. So there are many different types of software to create and view PDF files. There's a couple of reasons we advocate for Adobe Acrobat in this presentation, and I'll show you why, but it is an open standard. And what it means is that when you do create your PDF of your dissertation, thesis, or report, it'll allow anybody to use or view that file on any PDF viewer, regardless of what computer they're using or what software they might have. So they might not have access to your fabulous statistical software that you use to create your results, but because you've put it into a PDF format, they'll be able to also see that. So anybody can open and read the files. It's an open standard. Theoretically, you know, 100 years from now, because it's an open standard, somebody could create a brand new program to open up PDF files because all the PDF computer programs have disappeared. Like that could happen, right? And 100 years from now, what's this PDF format? Well, it's an open standard. And you can also use it to combine multiple file types into one. So if you have Excel files and TIFFs and JPEGs and PNGs, you've got all these different things, you can all put them in one thing that everybody can open. And I think we kind of all know that, but I think it's helpful to kind of take a step back for a second. We do recommend using Adobe Acrobat on campus. University-owned computers, there is a site license for that, so if it's not installed on a university computer, you can get that installed by contacting IT. If you do have a personal computer and you really want to use your computer and don't want to be going to another computer lab, it is something you can purchase. The academic pricing, the last time I looked, was $119. It's not horrible, and if you can use it for other things, that's certainly reasonable. You can also download a trial copy, and it works for 7 days for free. I'm sure that smart, intelligent people can figure out a way to make it last a little longer. I'm not that smart, but the trial copy that you download can last for 7 days. If you are off campus, and particularly for our people that are viewing us as online today, IT can help you set up remote desktoping ability so that you can remote desktop in and use university software. As long as you're a registered student and you're working on your degree, IT can still help you even if you're not on campus. So don't feel afraid to reach out to them and ask for assistance. There are other options. I mean, there's lots of freeware out there. If you Google PDF creation, you'll find 1,000,001. If you're a Mac user, there's a PDF maker and viewer built in. Word has a save as function that will save as PDF. Digital Commons and ProQuest will both upload, if you upload a Word document or some other format, will offer PDF creation. So with all these options, why are we still saying Adobe Acrobat? Those other options may or may not embed all of your fonts, which is one of the requirements we have in the graduate school for your document. The converter provided by Digital Commons will not embed all of your fonts. That is a known quantity. It will not do it. So every time you submit, if that's the converter you use, we will tell you your fonts are not all embedded. Now, I will say in the graduate school, one of the primary reasons we ask you to embed your fonts is that when you upload your document to ProQuest, it will check that all of your fonts are embedded, except for a couple. And what I can tell you is that the Digital Commons converter, generally speaking, will embed all the fonts that ProQuest needs. So if you can upload your document to ProQuest and it's successful, and embedding fonts is the only error in your document, we will accept your document with that one error in it. We're not cruel and heartless people. We want you to finish your degree. But I can just tell you right off the bat that the Digital Commons converter won't embed all your fonts. So it's not a useful tool in the sense of trying to make your document have that part of it correct. These converters also are only typically good for converting one file. So if your document's in multiple files, maybe your appendices are in a different document, then that's not going to help you. So that's another reason why you would want to use something else. When you upload it to one of these converters, especially with ProQuest or Digital Commons, I mean, we could do some experimentation and figure this out. It's not unreasonable. but I haven't taken the time to do that. You don't know what the graphics conversion parameters are. And so you don't know if it's going to take your beautiful 300 DPI image and make it a screenshot quality. You don't have control over it because it's just doing whatever it's set up to do. And it may or may not convert your document correctly. You should always, with any converter, check your document very carefully, including Adobe Acrobat. Make sure your document looks the way you intended on every page. I know that takes time, but you don't want to find a really obvious error 6 months from now and feel sad because it's there and you could have fixed it. And I'll give you an example of this that's kind of a sad one, actually. This was a table of contents in Word that a student submitted, and I kind of blocked it out so we can't tell who the student is. But we can see from what I've shown you that it's single-spaced. It's got nice lined-up page numbers. It looks good. They took their Word document and uploaded it to Digital Commons. This is a 2-page table of contents, and it turned their table of contents into 9 pages. And it looked like that. And that was page 3. If you can't scroll to page 3 of your document to check, you need to think about your process a little bit more. You need to give yourself a little more time to create this. Because this document then was, rejected and sent back to the student. And if you're submitting on the last day and there's 60 of your closest friends submitting with you, and you submitted at 4 o'clock and it takes you 2 weeks to figure out that page 3 was wrong, it's just sad because now your graduation's delayed and you've got all these other things that you're trying to finish up. So take a few minutes to look at your PDF because you don't know what these converters are going to do, including Acrobat. I mean, I've had my own problems with Acrobat. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I haven't seen this happen with Acrobat. And this was completely just wrong. And it just looked horrible and we had to send it back. So embedding fonts is the thing that's usually the #1 first question that people want to do. So why should you do it? Well, what embedding fonts does is it takes any of the fonts that you've used in your document and it puts them in the PDF file. So what this means is if somebody opens up your file and they don't have the fonts that you put in it, they can still see it the way you intended it to be seen. Now what happens with most of these converters like Digital Commons is that they'll decide not to embed fonts like Times. And that's kind of okay because most people have Times. And there's kind of a subset of fonts that everybody's decided are going to be on all computers. And those are the fonts that typically we have in our table as recommended fonts for you to use in your dissertation, thesis, or report. The problem is that sometimes people don't have Times, and then it'll just substitute something else, so it'll look really weird. Or maybe Times is okay not to be embedded, but Times Bold needs to be embedded in order to be successfully uploaded to ProQuest. So that's why we say all, because we don't know what the exceptions are. Your file size is typically increased by about 5 megs per font. So if you happen to be a font crazy person embedding, 100 different fonts, you're going to have a big file. If you're doing a dissertation with 100 different fonts, I would kind of question that, but that's your choice to make. ProQuest does require that most fonts be embedded. So when you upload to ProQuest, as dissertation and thesis students will do, if you don't have enough fonts embedded, it just won't let you upload your file. And so we're trying to make sure that when you get to that stage where you're ready to submit, that whatever you submit will be accepted without any problems. And there are, like I said, a few exceptions, but it's easier to say all than except for these 6. But if you can upload it to ProQuest and that's the only thing that's wrong with your document, we will be happy to accept it and just let you move on. So in Word, the way you'd want to upload, the way you'd want to create your PDF files, you'd want to look for that Acrobat tab. The Acrobat tab is going to give you the Acrobat tools. When you do File Save As in Word, you're using Word's converter. You're not using the Acrobat one. And so you'd want to look for those Create PDF and Preferences things there. So you want to, first of all, you want to set your PDF preferences. And what you want to do in that box that I've highlighted in red is you want to select a preset conversion setting. And the ones that are in there, high quality print or press quality, will both embed all of your fonts and will maintain the quality of your graphics. The default, which is standard, will not embed all your fonts. So if you're just kind of clicking the button on Create PDF, and you're going, but I use Adobe Acrobat, if you don't use the right settings, you won't get the right output. And if you think about it, PDF files are not really one size fits all. There's lots of different options. And so you can kind of think about it like a printer. When I send something to the printer in our office, I can select double-sided, I can select draft mode, multiple pages on one page, staples, with color, without color, draft, I can select all these things. And Adobe PDF does the same thing for you. It's very similar to sending it to a printer. It's not just a click a button and I get a PDF. I have a million different options. And so all these options create a lot of flexibility, but then it also creates a lot of work or a lot of confusion sometimes. So if I go into Word here and I go to the Acrobat tab, I'd want to go to that Preferences button. And I might have actually logged into this computer once before because it's actually selecting high quality print as my default, but I could also do press quality. There are some issues on network computers with creating your own profiles to save based on the way it saves them. So I just use the built-in ones. And I go, okay, so now I have that set. And now to create the PDF, I just have to click on this Create PDF button. It'll ask me where I want to save it, and I'll say that's fine. And now it will create the file for me. The other thing I wanted to point out as I was doing those preferences is this is where if you want to make a bookmarked file, if you're using our template, and there's some different options here, if you have these set up properly, this will create the bookmarks that you want for your document. And that's kind of an advanced topic for another presentation. That's not a requirement of the graduate school, but if anybody's having trouble with that and wants to know more about it, I'd be happy to help you out. So now in order to check whether my fonts are embedded, then you can do this with any file created in any way. I can go to the File and the Properties, Gesundheit. And I will see the fonts there, and we will see that next to all of them, it says embedded subset. Now what embedded subset means is that it's embedded all of the fonts and all the letters that I've used. So if I haven't used the letter Q anywhere in my document, it won't embed Q. So that helps it to save a little bit of space. If you never use the ampersand or the quotation marks or whatever characters you don't use, it won't embed them. And so that's one way to save a little bit of file space. As I said, the other common question that we have, or the common issue that we have with final documents, is stuff in the margins. This is the #1 problem. So if you can solve this problem, typically by the time you've checked your margins, you've probably found everything else that's going to be wrong as well, because you've looked at your document and you figured that out. So if you did this one thing, you would be more than likely much more successful with your submission. And there's a grid in Adobe Acrobat that will allow you to do that. And so what you'll want to do is set that up to start with. And it's on the units and guides. So if we go to Adobe Acrobat and we go File, or Edit Preferences, we'll go to the units and guides here. And I must have already done this in this room once before, or it saved my network settings from somewhere else. We want our ruler to be in inches. We want these to be 1 inch. And we want the subdivisions to be 4. That will make the divisions in 1/4 inch increments. By having the divisions in 1/4 inch increments, I can easily see where 1.5 inches is, which is supposed to be our left-hand binding edge margin. The default for this is actually 3. So if you set it up and just turn it on, it won't be right. So you have to change the preferences to get it to be good for you. The view menu is how you can show and hide them. So you can show and hide your grid here. There's a ruler and grid. You can memorize the keystroke, which is Control U, or you can just turn it on there. There's also, on that view menu, a really nice ruler. So if you want to know where 1 inch and 2 inch and 3 inches are with the subdivisions, you can see that really easily. And so that can be really helpful if you're new. One of the other common mistakes we see, particularly with our international students, is they'll use A4 paper on their dissertations or theses. And you can tell that really quickly from this page, because I can see this goes from 0 to 8.5. And A4 paper is like 8.27. I can really quickly see it's A4 paper and send it back to the student. So those screenshots will be in the slides, but we've just gone through those as a thing. So what are the margins? If we're talking about a portrait page in a single-sided document, portrait page is 8.5 by 11 letter size. That's what we require. The binding edge would be on the left. And the binding edge being, if we look at a book, we've all received a little book today. But if we think about a book, the binding is where it's foiled. So that's what we mean by the binding edge. The binding of the book is here. So on these portrait pages, the binding edge is on the left for a single-sided document, and that needs to be 1.5 inches on the left. On the other sides, we call those the non-binding edges, and those margins need to be 1 inch on the top, right, and bottom. If we're talking about a landscape page, those pages are going to look like this probably in your Word document, or rotated like they are shown on the graph. The binding edge now is on the top of those pages, because that's where, when we rotate them 90 degrees counterclockwise to put them in a book, that 1.5 inches is where you're going to need to have that space for the binding. And so this is, again, for a single-sided document. The page numbers are rotated. We've illustrated that with the 74 here. And the non-binding edge then would be, if we're looking at the landscape page in landscape format, the non-binding edge margin would be the left, right, and the bottom. Now, when we start to talk about double-sided pages, this is where life becomes complicated, and where I really would encourage you not to do double-sided formatting unless you really, really, really love formatting. And that's okay, and it's perfectly fine. But if you're a novice at formatting, or you really just don't care about formatting, and you just want to finish your degree, it's going to be a lot easier not to do that. When we flip the page, the page 2 is on the even side, and now the binding edge is on the right side. So it changes everything. You can see the guide for double-sided formatting. We're not going to talk too much about that today. We do have blog posts on our blog about how to set up the guide and the guides and margins for checking single and double-sided formatting in Adobe Acrobat. So if you are doing double-sided formatting, I would say go to our blog and find that blog post, and we'll walk you through that. But really, when we check the margins for a double-sided document, we rotate all the pages in the document so that everything is in portrait orientation. For a single-sided document, that means rotating all of your landscape pages. For a double-sided document, it means rotating all your landscape pages 90 degrees, and then rotating each even page 180 so that we don't have to flip our heads back and forward like a tennis ball. So if we go back to this document here, I don't think I put any, there's no landscape pages in here. But quite literally, what we do with your document is we put our little hand on 1.5. You know, this is a single-sided document, and we do this. It's thrilling work, I know. And we look at your document, and we go, oh, there's a problem on this page. The student can't graduate.
What, can I ask, why do you care? Why do they care? I honestly don't understand.
They care because when we're talking about ProQuest, they are microfilming your dissertation. And when they microfilm it, they need adequate margins in order to make sure that it's reproducible. Adequate margins also make your document look nice. If you have a 1/2 inch from the edge or a 1/4 inch from the edge, it just looks odd. You want to have some white space around the edges of your paper so that your page presents itself in a nice way. I have seen examples, if we didn't have rules, I've seen people with 1/4 inch margins on each side. It just doesn't look professional. And the other reason is the faculty have asked us to continue to check margins because there are some faculty who would still like to have the documents printed. And if you are going to send this out to a bindery, they will require these margins in order to have a professional product at the end of the day. So it just looks, it looks odd. If you're going to look at this page, you've got this preface heading here, and now you've got this over there. This looks weird. Do you really want this representing the best of your work? This is the culmination of, 6 years of PhD work, perhaps. That's what mine was. My PhD and master's took 6 years. I don't want the end of 6 years to not look like I spent some time on it. So those are the reasons why we still check the margins. Now we go a little faster and we're pretty good at doing it. So we, look, but we see that table's wrong. We see, this page is okay. Now this table, this is, a big example here, but this is a typical example of some of the errors that we do see in documents where the figure will be, just way too big on the page. And now it looks odd because this is supposed to be 1 inch margin, and now you've got this figure, 1/2 inch over on the other side. It just doesn't look professional. So that's what we'll do, is we'll look through your document. So this document, as submitted to the graduate school, would have been returned to the student. And all of these examples are things that happen every single day when we're looking at a number of documents. This is not, I'm not exaggerating this just to make a point. So how can we fix this? The ability to edit does depend on what you're editing. There are times when you will find this will work perfectly, and there are times where it kind of won't. Editing can be limited based on whether the fonts are embedded, how it's created, what software you use. There's a lot of variables that I can't really kind of give you a magic clue for this. And everything is manual. So all the things I'm going to show you here, if I make these changes to the PDF file, I'm not changing the Word document. So if I have to go back and create another PDF file, I might have to refix these things. However, if you're struggling with Word and something just isn't working, and you can fix it in 10 seconds on this, it might be worth it. So let's take a look at how some of these are done. So you're going to find the editing tools. In Adobe Acrobat DC Pro, it's going to be this Edit PDF area. So let's take this one. So I go Edit PDF, and it's already in edit mode here. I'm going to take the grid off just so it's a little bit less woggly on the eyes there. But I can actually take this figure in Adobe Acrobat and I can shrink it. And so now that's acceptable. And that took me 10 seconds.
We can use more white space.
We can do that. I can even, now this figure caption is pretty separated, I can move this figure caption up a little bit. I can even, if I want more white space to spread the page out, I can do this. There's a whole bunch of stuff I can do here. So I can really make this page look a lot better than it was to start with. The other thing that we can do is we can see here, here's a title page. There's not supposed to be a page number on the title page. This title page has a page number. I can actually just go backspace and get rid of it. So if you are one of those people, you created your own document, or you deleted a section break you weren't supposed to, and you can't figure out how to fix it, you can do this in Adobe Acrobat and fix it in just a few seconds. You can also, this page isn't supposed to have one, I can delete this. Now notice here on this page that these things are tied together somehow. So the ability for me to edit this, like I can move this anywhere I want, but these guys are like like going together as a block. So this is what I mean by sometimes things will work just great and you can do everything, and sometimes you're going to be a little limited by what you can do. And it just depends. So you can definitely edit those things. This page here, the preface page, this is going to be a little more complicated. And I would probably turn the grid on if I were doing this for real, but I'm trying so you can actually see it a little bit. But I can actually go over, I'm lining it up with the P in the preface. So now the left-hand side's lined up, and that's okay, the way it is now. Or actually it's not, because this is going over. But I can very easily resize this to be at 7.5, and you can see with the ruler here, I can see where that line is lining up, and now I've changed that. So if I have enough space on that page, I can potentially fix that. Same thing with the abstract. This one's actually easier, because this one's already at 1 inch over here. I can take this and drag it over to 1.5, and now this page is also acceptable. So there's a lot of little fixes I can do. This table is over the margins on the left-hand side, but it's not on the right, so I can just move it over. I highly recommend for tables centering them, because what Word does, it's a helpful thing, but what it does on all of your tables is the table is flush left with your page. However, what it's done is it's added padding so that the margins or the borders that you want on the table are actually pushed out into the margin. Another simple fix for a table is to center it, because then as long as it's less than kind of about 5.8 inches, you're going to have a table that's inside of your document. And so that's one thing that Word does to be helpful, to make sure that your table looks nice, but to make sure that none of your borders are touching. So in this document, I don't think we had any other. We fixed this one, we fixed the abstract, we've taken out those page numbers, and everything else looks fine in terms of formatting.
How do you change all the page numbers? So first 2 pages have numbers, so the third one starts with 3.
You have to have your Word document formatted to have the 3 in there, but in this document did. So if we go back up to the top, it had a 3 there. So what you can do in Adobe Acrobat easily is delete the existing page numbers.
Can we change the number?
Okay, I can't hear if all of you are talking over each other. So you can easily delete a page number, but if you want to add page numbers, you can also actually do that, but it will mess up other things. So you can, in Adobe Acrobat, you can add footers, but what it will tell you is that you already have a footer in your document. And so you can either replace the existing one, which will then put the footer on top of the footer that you already have, or you can add a new one, which, I'm sorry, the replace existing will get rid of all your page numbers, and adding a new one will put things on top of. And I wouldn't recommend fixing your page numbers throughout a whole document like this. It's not going to be an efficient way to do that. But if you have the 3 here the way it's supposed to be, it's okay to fix it. And actually this page number is in the wrong place. So page numbers need to be 1 inch from the bottom of the page. So this is the correct location for that page number. So that's another fix that you can make in Adobe Acrobat.
But then we'll have to do this for all pages.
If you made a mistake on all pages, yes. But typically what happens is that these pages are wrong because something happened with my section break. So they're all wrong up until the abstract, and now they were fine. So typically what will happen is that they'll be fine for a part of the document, but not for the whole document. And so if it's a small part in a few pages, it would be easier probably to move them up in the PDF file than to go back to Word and fix it and create it again. It depends on how the magnitude of your error is. Okay. So the other tool that I want to show you is the redaction tool. And this is how you can obscure text. So this can be used for text that maybe is, it might be sensitive text. You might have a sponsor that requires you to redact a certain portion of a figure or a table. Or you might have a signature in it. And signatures are the primary reason we see this, because we don't want to have signatures in our electronic document. It's going to be easiest to kind of search for redact, and then I add it as a shortcut. And then you can mark for redaction to get rid of those items. So let's show you how to do that. So I've actually already added this to my toolbar because I've used it before in this room. But if we went to the tools area here, redact is here. I could remove the shortcut, so now it might be like what yours looks like at home. So I don't have that tool now anymore, but I can search for it in this window here. And when I search for it, if I go to the tools, if I go here, I can just find the mark for redaction. If I go here and find redact, I can actually add that as a shortcut. So if you're going to use it more than once, I would add it as a shortcut. So on the end page here, I've simulated a signature here. Once you have the redaction toolbar here, you would click on redact. That gets you your toolbar. You're going to mark for redaction. We're going to mark text and images because we're going to select which things we want to redact. It'll give you a little warning thing, and it tells you that it requires 2 steps. The first is to mark it, and the second is to apply it. And I can say I don't want to see this again, but since I demo it enough that I want students to see this again, I just go okay. And you'll see now I have a little crosshairs or a little cursor depending on where I go. And so what I would recommend for redacting is I usually redact enough of the text so that I can see there's a signature there, but I can't really see it. I can see a little bit of cleary things there, but you know, I can't see it. So this is the marking, and I could mark any sorts of things. I could redact Dear Blizzard. I could redact, you know, a portion of this picture because there's maybe maybe it's a picture of a person and they don't want their eyes in the photo because it's supposed to be private. I could redact that here. You know, I could redact this because, you know, I don't want to see Lower Michigan. I don't care about them, you know, whatever. So I can go through and redact, and then when I go apply, it'll warn me, you're going to get rid of this stuff. Are you really sure? And I go, yep. And it'll go, it's successfully been applied. It'll also ask me if I want to find and remove other hidden information. And that information could be things like metadata in my files or other things. And I can go yes or no. I usually don't, but we could do yes for, but it's looking at my, you know, metadata. And I've got metadata. Oh, it has my name here. Maybe I want to get rid of that. So I want to add, you know, I want to remove all this stuff because I don't want my name in here anymore. So I'm going to go, okay. It's removing all the metadata. And now we'll see that instead of having that be a highlight that shows what's beneath it, it'll be permanently gone from my document. It also, if you'll see in the upper left here, it says _redacted. It won't let you save over your original file unless you kind of actually manually do it. So it'll automatically create a second file for you. It'll ask you where I want to save it. I'll go, yeah, I want to save it there. Okay, yeah, sure. So that's the redaction tool. So the editing tools and the redaction tools are quite useful for a variety of documents and circumstances. So hopefully what you've gotten out of this presentation demo is that a PDF file is not one size fits all. There's lots of different options and scenarios for you. It does have a lot of tools where you can edit and check your document. And all the presentations from everything we've done today will be online, so you can refer back to them because I know this is a lot to absorb in one day, but now you know the overview of everything and you can kind of go back to it and refer to it. And at this point, I am open for any questions